Good evening, everybody. Just like to welcome you all and thank you all for coming along, both personally and those that have logged on remotely. So, what I'd like to introduce you to the trustees. I'm Maureen Leonard, I'm the chair. We've got Fiona Girvin at the back, she's the vice chair. We've got Mike here, who's the communications officer. And we've got Rachel, who is the funding officer, and Jackie's floating around somewhere, the secretary. She's here somewhere. We've got a couple of the trustees that couldn't make it along tonight. Lewis isn't well and James is working. So tonight, how the meeting's going to be structured is we're going to have to wing it a wee bit. Our consultant was stranded in Glasgow, the trains are off. So he's now, oh, here's Jackie coming in, she's our secretary. Douglas is on his way down by taxi, so whenever Douglas comes in, we'll be handing over to him, who will go through the feasibility and the business plan with you. So he should be here just after 7 o'clock. But in the meantime, obviously the purpose of this meeting is to go through the independent consultant's feasibility study, the business plan. We also got an independent valuation done, and it was commissioned by the Trust and it was paid for by the Architectural Heritage Fund grant funding. So, as you all know, our plans are to take this lovely building and the halls over and turn it into a multi-use venue for the community, owned by the community. And like we said in July, when we had our full public meeting, there's a whole raft of things that we had discussed about using the sanctuary for. So, for example, the weddings, the corporate events, you know, our drama, our theatre, our musical events, etc. And it could be used as, you know, practice areas for choirs and musicians, etc., and pop-up cinemas. Now, these were all ideas that came out of public consultation back in 2019, with the exception of the weddings. This was something that was advised to us a few months last year, when they said it's a good income generating things to have in the sanctuary, because it works elsewhere, for example up in Coates and Paisley, and that would provide us with a good income stream to keep the buildings going on an ongoing basis. Now, for the halls are very popular in this town because they offer a space that's not available anywhere else. The other two churches, Church of Scotland, the halls are actually at capacity almost. So the people that are using the halls at the moment, they've not really got anywhere to go. Going on through in the big hall just now, we've got dance classes. Now there's quite a few kids goes to these dance classes on different nights within the community, and if we lose these halls, they've got nowhere to go, so that's kids losing their dancing. We've also had loads of people that actually came forward and asked us, if you end up owning the church, can we use the space? Well, yes, the answer is yes. Anyone within the community can hire those spaces out for any types of events. You know, your yogas, your keep fits, etc., etc. I'm going to touch on an issue that has arisen, that Douglas might speak about it, you know, later on. We're not here to displace any income from any other venue. We have been very clear about that from the beginning. We hope to work alongside other venues and work in partnership with other venues. Now, our plans are obviously to maximise our income within the halls, but it means that we're not going to be taking the income away from anybody else, because all that's going to do is we're going to lose activities, groups, etc. that use other venues. The council, they've got the venue right next door to us. They hold musical events on a regular basis. They're going to be ploughing money into it to do their buildings up and offering similar activities to what we'll be doing. However, I don't see an issue with that. I see that we can actually work together. I think what lacks in this town is a bit of coordination among venues, whereby, well, there's an example. We've got our Marcapello event going on tonight, and they're raising money for another one of our projects, for the trishaw bikes. It's just one of these things. A lot of people that would have maybe came here have gone to the Marcapello, which is fine because they're raising money for another trust project. But we had a wee bit of a tribute act going on in September, and we booked the concert halls for the 12th of September, and it wasn't till near enough the time was upon us we realised that the concert hall was booked out on the Saturday the 13th for a tribute act. That could have had a negative impact, well it did, and we didn't probably raise as much money as we could have. So it's trying to work together with organisations, not against each other. There's room for us all. There is a requirement for these halls, where, as I say, we're not going to be taking business away from anybody else. That's not what we're here for. We're here to actually create a network within the communities whereby we're all working together and bringing the community together rather than working in silos. Where we are currently financially is just slightly less than 10% than what we need. We did get an extension from the Church of Scotland from the end of September to the end of this month. So unless somebody walks through that door and hands us a cheque for 200,000, it doesn't look very promising, to be honest with you. There is no grant funding available for purchase and acquisition of land and buildings at the moment from the normal sources, which would have been normally the Scottish Land Fund. The Scottish elections going to be happening next year, and until the Scottish elections have happened, they're not going to open up the fund for new funding streams. We have been advised from an expert that some of the other architecture, like the architectural heritage funds, your lottery heritage funds, etc., will be looking at how their grant funding is structured, because there has been a saturation in the market of old churches that's coming up. Just in the last week, there's been St Andrews in Irvine has come on the market. We've now got the one up in Largs on the market. We've got Girvan has come on the market. All these churches, if they are to be kept within the community, are going to require grant funding. So it might be more difficult in the future for us to get the funding that we require. So we are in negotiations at the moment with the Church of Scotland, and hopefully we'll be having a meeting next week to discuss ways forward for us to be able to retain this in the community if possible. Now, Douglas isn't here yet because he's still on the way down in a taxi, but there's post-it notes at the end of the rows, but I'm going to let Rachel speak to you about what we want you to do with these post-it notes, just briefly. And it's optional, but we want to hear your views and your ideas, your concerns, etc., and then we'll collate them and get back to you collectively.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just a warm-up act really for Douglas until he arrives, but it's really important to all of us as trustees of the Troon Development Trust to hear what everybody in the community thinks and to be able to get your ideas, your comments and your questions. So as Maureen said, you've got your post-it notes. In a moment, myself and my fellow trustees, we're going to come around and talk to you. And for those of you online, obviously we haven't given you post-it notes, but you have a chat function. So Dylan's going to be looking after you. And these are the kind of things that I want you to think about and talk to us about, write them on your post-it notes. I know not everybody's always comfortable asking questions in a public meeting, so this is an alternative way to do it. We're going to collate it all together. If we can answer some tonight, we will. If we can't, we'll get back to you on them. So these are kind of things I'd like you to think about. So firstly, communication. So we've had messages in Troon going out, we've had posters up, we're on Facebook and Twitter, And there's still people within Troon that don't know about us, don't know about the Troon Development Trust and what we're trying to do. So what else can we do? We'd love to hear your ideas on that, to pick your brain so we can put that into practice, not just for finding out about us, but for the projects that we're doing and the events that we put on. So tell us what you think's worked, tell us what else you think we could do. Another thing that's important for us is about the Troon heritage. So, and if we get this building, then we'd love to have a heritage museum in there. So what do you think about our town? Is it important for us to celebrate? What do we need to tell people about? What should there be more awareness of? And what would that be for locals? And what would that be for visitors to our town? So we've got the ferry port now. If somebody's going to make a day of going to the ferry, or after they get back off the ferry, they want to come to a heritage museum, what would we want to tell them? What do you think should be included there? Would also, another thing to think about is how you can get involved in the trust. So Fiona's been going around with her clipboard and hopefully she's got your names and email addresses. But are you all members of the Troon Development Trust? Do you know what that means? Do you know how to sign up? Would you like to volunteer with us? Do you have skills or knowledge that could be really valuable for the people of Troon and would like to do some volunteering? If so, please let us know. We'd love to keep in touch with you about that and get involved. Or are you part of another organisation that you think could work in tandem with the Troon Development Trust? Maureen said about how we can cooperate and work together with people. Do you have an idea for something that can do that? Maureen also mentioned the Trishaw bikes, which has been a really successful project of the Troon Development Trust. You might have seen them at Wintertainment or going up and down the prom. What else can we do? So obviously we hear tonight about this beautiful building, but what else should the Trust be looking at? Where do you think we should be putting our efforts? What's important to the town? And final thing for you to think about, if we are successful in getting the church, Maureen's also mentioned some ideas of what we think could be used and what different things we can do with the building. But do you have any other ideas that you think we should take into consideration? People we can contact, ways that you can get involved with that? So I know I've given you loads of things to think about there. Hopefully at least a couple of them have sparked ideas off in your mind. So I'm looking at the trustees now. Maureen, we're heavier on that side of the room, so if you maybe want to take this side of the room and talk to people over here. So get your post-it notes, have a think. Maureen's here, she'll talk to you, take ideas. Jackie, sorry, if you could take maybe the first 3 or 4 rows on this side, that would be brilliant, thank you. And Jackie will talk to you and collect your ideas in. Fiona, if you may be towards the middle, and I'll come up towards the back of the room. And Mike, you're on Douglas watch. Yeah, thank you. So we'll give you just a few minutes, have a think, write things down, talk to us, and we're really keen. Comments, questions, ideas. Thank you. Do you have pens in your pockets, people? If not, we'll get... Good man. Excellent. If you don't have a pen, we've got some markers. We'll get the markers out to you as well. We've got extra post-it notes, Mr. Paul. We'll get you them out of them.
I know. I thought touches got negotiating.
We're just getting to
I mean, what was the essential? If the house never finds come in the beginning of January, it's when
Did you get post-it notes up here?
I wouldn't I'm surprised they've managed to come to a conclusion like that because it usually take months and years to do things like that. So I don't know.
You're away.
said it would be upright and do it as well. For what? Aye, Barry, Billy, and Carol and myself. Well, I'm on what I did at that, well, on Sunday. Well, I said to Billy on Sunday, he said just the three of them, and I said, well, I'll come and help you.
I can add to some of that, but I mean, obviously the building is still unusual. So, something like this needs to
No.
so, activities to do. There are areas that need to be tackled, like I think Douglas is going to touch on that. So it's not in the building, but it's very usable.
Somebody else is doing it. We're just in for a heat. See? Do you feel it up there? Oh, I don't need a big marker for that. Thank you. I gave up teaching 15 years ago. I'm not wanting to do it again.
I wondered what it was, to be honest. Yes.
I was actually waiting to see what the feasibility study and everything would say before I would make any comment about anything.
I know, unfortunately, yeah, that was the original. But if it's on the, like, aside from the feasibility stuff, I think we thought some like
Well, I mean, we've used this building for the last 50 years, so I mean, we know how it goes and we know what you can do in the building, so
Yeah.
there's not really a lot of questions, I think, as far as that's concerned. And if you could carry on with all of these things that have been suggested, then that's fine. I had a wee snigger when she said at one of the meetings that she was going to take the pews out because that's where the central heating system is, all the pipes are underneath the
I know.
pews. That would be a job and a half.
It would be a job and a half. That wouldn't be a day one job, you know. But it's one of those things that would potentially open it up.
Yeah, oh yes, I can understand.
But yeah, that would take some work to do, obviously.
You get the same answer over there. But it's all the same kind of things that we used to do as we were young, on choirs and concerts and it's not as good as it's going to be any different to anything that's been done in the building. Well, they did a wee back in the beginning, didn't they? But I mean, that's why I'm saying that I was listening when she said she was going to take the pews out. But that's where the central heating system is, underneath those pews. But we need to do a whole new heating system as well. No. But then, because it's not a honest offering, it's taken longer for us to back. When we were using the building all the time, it was on a day or something, and it was being used. That's right. who's lost the most money since it's become one church? Some of them are just against anything and everything. Be a part of the whole thing, and we all voted for a one church. Aye. The guy in a taxi when he down from Glasgow. I don't know what train he was on.
Well, 5 o'clock next, that's Paisley. So I was told to get home. And well, I tried to go in the Lark Street, thinking it was like
Exactly. And was there any reason for it? Oh yeah, they changed their mind. There was such an uproar about that. They changed their mind. And the 7 o'clock train in the morning from, so that they could get the train and the staff where they need to be. So it was to be a sleeper train. All the staff had to be on it to get where they needed to be for their job, but there was to be no passengers. And why would you run a train all that way empty? That's how much
Dylan? Right, folks, this is Douglas Westwater, our consultant from Community Enterprises. You will have a chance to complete any other questions later on, but I'm going to put Douglas on to you just now, okay? Douglas, welcome.
Okay, good evening everybody. Yeah, huge apologies for being late. I arrived at Central Station and all the trains are cancelled. There's some issue with the air train, so apologies for being so late and thank you very much for being so patient. Right, on to our next slide. Okay, just really briefly, I wanted to introduce ourselves. So I work with an organisation called Community Enterprise. And we provide consultancy support right across Scotland for organisations that are looking to transfer assets. We are a charity ourselves, but we provide that consultancy support, and a lot of our work is about helping organisations to take on buildings. We've done this for about 20 years, so traditionally there was lots of community centres and libraries and private sector buildings. Probably the biggest asset transfers that we are involved in at the moment are churches, which probably won't surprise everybody. So we're very used to working with buildings like this, and some of them are tiny little rural churches, some of them are very big churches like here. There can be, one of them we worked with was Brecon Cathedral, so they can go from the sublime to the ridiculous, and they're always very unique to the local community. So we are used to working with all the challenges of communities finding a new purpose for these churches, because of course they're absolutely bespoke to the purpose that they were built for originally, and therefore it can take a bit of time to think through how we arrange that going forward. Thanks. Okay, obviously you're in the building just now. I just wanted to give you a feel about the scale of this building. The scale of the building means that it's really positive. So a lot of the churches that we work with, you've really just got the sanctuary, a couple of toilets and a kitchen. It's quite common in some of the rural churches we work with that they don't have any sewage, they don't have any water, so they can be quite basic. The church here, as you can see, has got extensive space. So although we have the sanctuary that would have its own vision, there's the big hall, which most of you will know, very flexible space. There's lots of meeting rooms. There's an upstairs space even that we can look to letting out. So it gives us lots of opportunities to think through what the potential future is for this building. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a feel about the process that we went forward through so far during this. So obviously, the Trust has done its own consultation before we were involved. I'm sure a lot of you were at the public meeting that was videoed here, and we've looked at that. There's been a lot of consultation that the Trust has already done, which is also quite unusual. A lot of the organisations that we come to work with, they really haven't done anything. They just say, well, we want to take on this building, but we're not sure how to do it or who to speak to, and we're very much starting from scratch. And that wasn't the case here. The Troon Development Trust have done quite a lot of thinking and meetings with stakeholders and discussions with partners and competitors. They had a good list of potential users of the church building, so they were ahead of the game before we got involved. After that, we had an analysis of all of that data. We then issued a community survey, which I'll give you some feedback from in a moment. I'm sure a lot of you would have filled that in. So we got that data from there. We then looked at particularly mapping all of the town. So one of the key things that we need to be concerned about is developing this church going to negatively impact on any of the other facilities in the town? That's incredibly important. So we mapped all of those assets, we spoke to them all, and we therefore tried to find a relatively unique approach to this building so that it's not duplicating any of the other spaces in the town. As you can imagine, in a town with lots of different spaces, that can bring its own challenges, because there are a number of different spaces, but we need to be finding a way where all of those spaces, all of those halls are developed and progressed, and not just this hall at the expense of those others. So we did that piece of work there. We then did some market research. So that was about, we know that there's a demand for this, so there's lots of concerns and lots of issues in the community, but generally speaking, there's a very high level of support to retain this church for the community, for a community benefit. So we know there's a good demand for that, there's good need in the community, but we also needed to know, well, is this financially viable? So we looked at our market research to see what kind of things we could use the space for, what people would pay for that, and what the profit would look like, and we did some financial modelling. So that market research gave us a feel about whether these ideas were sustainable or not. We looked at some case studies of other churches over the past few years who have already taken on their building. So there are a number of communities, lots and lots of communities over the country, who have already been where you are, and they've already taken on their church, and they've already found a suitable solution for that. Some of them have spent money in renovations, and some of them have just used the building as it is. So there's case studies there to show, this can be done. Other communities have managed to make this work. So we've looked at those. There's been a lot of work done on demographics. When we look at funding and bringing in funding to make this happen, those funders will be interested in, well, what's this community like? What are the needs? Is it about young people? Is it about isolated older people? Is there issues around employment or jobs or isolation? So we've had a look at that, and there's some statistics available that we'll look at in a future slide. And that then brought us to look at finance and funding, and pulled all that together into a feasibility study. We presented that to the Trust, we discussed that in a bit of detail, and we've moved towards a business plan for what we think could be the future for this building. So that was our process so far. And tonight, I suppose, is kind of the end of that process, is to take your views, open up for questions. Very happy to do that. And if that means we have to tweak the business plan and make some changes, that's very easy to do. So very much open to your comments tonight, and there's still room to make changes in the plan. So this was just to give you a feel about some of the statistics from the work that we did. We did that community survey. It was answered by 315 individual responses. We did ask within the survey whether that represented additional family members. Some people were answering the survey on the behalf of maybe a group of friends or their family. So that did represent a higher number of people, but we weren't representing that number here. So this is 315 surveys. 93% of those were local residents, just because sometimes people will ask, well, was it people coming off the ferry, or visitors, or holiday makers? But 93% of those surveys were from the local community here in Troon. We just simply asked the question, well, there was lots of questions, as those who would have filled in the survey will have seen, lots of questions in there, and we just, as part of that, just say, well, you know, all other things being equal, do you, generally speaking, if there's a sustainable plan for here, support the community taking over this asset? And 83% of people supported community ownership of the church here. So we feel that's quite high. We quite often find that's high, so it's often in the high 60s, 70s. 83% is pretty high, so we're fairly confident that we have a really strong direction of travel from the local community. The kind of things people were interested in, 82% agree that ownership will enhance creativity, so they want to see things like events, concerts, choirs, those kind of things in the sanctuary, as well as things within the hall. So creativity, dance, keep fit, those kind of things are quite popular. And 79% agree that it will strengthen the community. There's a whole range of different statistics within the wider reports. This is just to give you a flavour of some of those. Within that, we asked people how many people would like to be involved in the project. So 17% of people said they would like to be involved as a volunteer, to become a member of the trust. And again, that's quite high. 17% of the 300 is relatively high from people doing that. And we have a lot of those contact details. So we are able to get in contact with a lot of the people who said they would like to continue to be involved in this project. Public engagement has been really good, so we spent a bit of time in the community, spoke to quite a number of different people, all whom were relatively positive about the idea. We've spoken to a lot of stakeholders, so that was strategic stakeholders like the local authority and so on, but also potential user groups. So we have a good number of people who want to continue using the space, some who are already using it, and some new groups who would like to use it in the future. So in terms of the strengths in the community, so we asked people not just what the problems were, but what are some of the strengths in the community. And these are, as I say, quite high-level summaries from quite a big report. People said to us that there was a strong sense of civic identity. People were collaborative, they worked quite well together, very proud of their community, so quite a strong sense of belonging to this community. The cultural and heritage value of the church was really important. So I think people felt a lot of memories in this church. They felt it was a really crucial part of just the physical landscape of the town. So it was very highly valued as a space. And, you know, a lot of the buildings that we work with are vacant for a long time. Yes, of course, like any building, it's going to have roof issues. It was a big building with a lot of potential things that can go wrong. But, you know, you're sitting here, it's very, very well maintained. Lots of issues that can be done, but generally speaking, people value the building. And there's lots of active groups and really good strategic alignment with both local strategy, local plans, but also national strategy like community wealth building, like the economic development with the Scottish Government, things like community empowerment, which is about government wanting communities to take control of services and assets that matter to them. So they all fit really well with those national outcomes. Right, great, thank you. Okay, so in terms of some of the needs that emerged, there's quite an older demographic, but there's also limited youth space in the town, so a bit of a demand for that, and very limited ways of do that kind of informal meeting. So we're certainly not setting up a commercial cafe, but and there's lots of spaces that people can book, but maybe not so many spaces people can walk in, spend a bit of time, mix, that's quite affordable. So there's a bit of a demand and need for that. Very high level of support for performance spaces, so 74% of that survey said they would like performances and concerts, plays, film nights, you know, those kind of things. Arts and crafts and well-being was quite highly demanded from people. And people felt there was lots of space, but a kind of lack of a multi-purpose space that was very flexible, that lots of things could happen. It could change over time as the community changes and as the need changes and generations change. There was a need for something that was very flexible and could move with the times. So that felt quite important. It's probably worth saying, if you're all sitting there, I'm sure some of you will have questions about how will we sustain this. So there are risks and concerns at some of these assets. So this won't surprise anybody, but there are there's a potential risk of duplication when you develop a building in a town. So I mentioned that quite near the start. So we're having to make quite a big effort to make sure this is bespoke, that we're not undermining other people. So that is a risk for us, and I know it was a concern when we did some of our research. Some of the other places that we spoke to, particularly local authority venues, were a bit concerned about, well, if we created something really high profile and attractive, how it might impact on their businesses. So we're very aware of that potential risk. Funding is extremely challenging. I would say a few years ago, over the years, we would always talk about funding, and we would say some projects we would say were fairly easy to fund because they maybe fitted different criteria. Some projects could be quite challenging to fund, maybe they're in the wrong area or they had different outcomes that didn't fit with the funders' guidelines. Every single project from Shetland to Annan are struggling with funding. We have a very significant lack of capital funding in Scotland. So certainly one of the risks here is attracting millions of pounds to do up the building, and we need to therefore think, is there something that we do in the meantime? Is it a usable building that we can gradually, in a phased way, do fundraising and do up bits of the building over a period of time? So that's certainly a risk. That's a national risk for all projects like this. May change over time. There's some new funding coming through. I was at a meeting a few weeks ago with a new fund called the Local Growth Fund, which we didn't even know existed when we wrote this plan. So there are funds around, but it is, that fund is a bit of a challenge. So if you do ask questions about funding, was that a challenge? I'll say yes, it is. So there are some issues there. Financial viability is something that we look at. We've very carefully set up some cash flow projections. We know the people that use it, we know how much money they're willing to pay, we know the bills in the building, and it is a big building. The bills are high, utility bills are high, so we have carefully set up a cash flow that we think works, but it's quite tight. And it's quite tight, particularly because of the scale of the building and the kind of bills and maintenance, running costs, cleaning the gutters, fixing the roof, paying the electricity bill. These are sizable bills in a building of this size. So we've had to think carefully about where the income's coming for that. And the majority of that can come from self-generated income. There might be some bits of extra money needing to come from grants and fundraising, but we think, generally speaking, it stacks up. But it is challenging because of that. This is the scale of the income that we need to generate. And then just governance-wise, right now it's very strong. The Trust has got a really good board, good set of skills. We've done a skills audit for the board, and we're confident that they have that. They're tapping into training and other skills that they need. But that, for a building of this scale, that's possibly a risk. So although the current board are really good, if they have a lot of resignations or people moving on, we need to make sure that governance continues, and we have succession plannings for that board going forward. So there are some things we need to really keep an eye on. Okay, just moving forward, a few more slides just to give you a feel about where we're heading. So we're trying to set up a vision for this project that it looks particularly at enhancing the economic viability of the town, which means it's not just about this building, but it's the impact it makes across the whole of the town and how important that will be. It's got to be a place that brings the community together. It's at that place where we're talking about intergenerational work, bringing different groups together, people working jointly. So those kind of things are important. So the Trust isn't just acting as a landlord, letting out space to different groups, but is actually making an effort to bring them together and really make life better for the people of Troon here. So that's very important. And then finally, making sure it's a space, I think I said this before, that can evolve with changing needs as the town changes. It can be flexible and changing as necessary. So getting towards the end of the slides now. So these are the kind of things that we think work here. Some of them have got duplication with other spaces, so we need to be careful of cross-referral, maybe doing some joint marketing for maybe a shared booking system with some of these places. But here are some of the things that we feel are going to be quite highly demanded. Community events, as I've mentioned, so theatre, cinema, music, those kind of things, monthly cinema nights, seasonal, Christmas event, Easter events, those sorts of things are quite important to people. We think it can continue as a very bespoke wedding venue. Obviously, as a church, it would be having lots of weddings here. There are other wedding venues. We do have weddings in our competitive analysis. We're aware if other weddings take place, but we can have that here, potentially conferences, from corporates to local authority, and those kind of things. We need to think about how we set this out. Do we leave the pews? Do we take the pews out? So there's a lot of design work to be thought around those. Community lets, obviously, it's already let. The big hall, of course, some of the meeting rooms, it's already let. So we want to continue to protect those people. They'll continue to stay here, and we'll build on that with some new people coming in. So there's flexible lets. Having some sort of drop-in space, so that's absolutely not setting up a cafe. So I don't want you to go saying we're thinking of setting up a cafe with cooks and waitresses and so on, but a kind of pop-up thing where you might say, like, Saturday morning's a pop-up cafe. We might do a thematic meal. We might have maybe a housing advice morning, and there'd be teas and coffees. So those kind of things where you'd be bringing the community in for particular things, campaigns, new information coming out, the launches of plans, so those sorts of ways to bring people together during the week. With the space in the big hall and potentially here having things like markets, food markets, local crafts, those kind of things, so we've got space to do that. Heritage has merged is really important. People felt that the heritage of the town wasn't really celebrated anywhere. There wasn't really an archive. There wasn't a lot of photographs of the town. So we think building in some sort of heritage space here to celebrate that would be quite important. And finally, you'll know the green space that's outdoors. We're very lucky that this doesn't have lots of graves everywhere, which often makes some of the churches we work with really quite challenging. There's really nice green space. So we can have outdoor fairs, we can have community gardening, we can do things like that. If there's a youth space, they can spill out outdoors. So that outdoor space is quite important. Okay, so finally, the next steps as we think this through, and then I'll just open up for questions after this. We need to secure the assets for community benefit. The Church of Scotland still owns the building. They're keen to sell it. So we need to think, how do we secure that for the community? So that's our next main step. We need to establish meantime use. We're not going to generate £2 or £3 million tomorrow. What can we use the building for in the meantime? So we protect the building, we value it, we start to generate income from lets, make it active, make it busy, and the fact that it is busy and creating impact, that will attract grant funding over the next months and years in a phased way. So that fundraising will happen in a phased way over time, and we want to, as I say, maximise collaborative working with various other assets in the town, and make sure we're creating that niche of events to make sure we're working very closely with other people. So that's very much embedded in our business plan, and that's where we'll start to go to from here. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of where we've got to so far, and I'm sure you've got lots of questions, so happy to take any questions that you've got. I think there's a roving mic. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We had a meeting in here 6 months ago. We heard most of it before. Have you made this presentation to George Square in Edinburgh? And did it allow them to give you £200,000?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Are we moving out of our hall next door? We hear the end of this year, which is in 4 weeks' time. Nobody gives us any answers to those important questions. I cut the grass in on a Tuesday, I serve coffee on a Saturday morning, like dozens and dozens of people. How long have we got to get £200,000? Christmas is in 3 weeks' time. Okay. I'm going home to watch the football now.
Yeah.
A church building is the most expensive building to run under any circumstances. And to get commitment from a whole community to say that they will do this and they'll constantly raise funds and they'll constantly do money. It's a full-time job to apply for grants, to run something this size. A full-time job to get the grants. And people's lives change. So you can't get commitment from them on any long-term thing as you would have in a private business. So the community, I think it's commendable that you've got a group of people here who are really keen to do things for the community. I think it's highly commendable they want to do that. But not for something this size. And it's cuckoo land to be talking about all the things you could do when other wee groups and church groups elsewhere in the town are all doing community things. They're all already doing them. What do you think is going to make it any different if they're suddenly all saying, oh, let's all go there? I'm sorry, I just think that banging their heads against the wall and they're putting in good time and effort, they could be aiming it for somewhere else, maybe something a bit more modest.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning, I'm not going to stand here and say to you, don't worry, there's loads of money. I mean, I think I've made it very clear and been quite honest that funding is challenging and sustaining a building of this size is difficult. So I'm not going to say to you, I don't disagree with it. I do disagree. I do agree with you. I think I've left. That's why I meant the bit around governance. As I said, if something happens and this group walks away, Maureen's driving a lot of this, and they've got a really strong committee. But if they go, I'm fed up with this, it's a problem. So, but you've got a choice here as a community. Do you want this? In which case, it's a hard journey. But it's done. I could name you, there's lots of churches in our report who have already done this. It's done, they're open, they're busy, they're sustainable. It is hard. It's hard to generate the money, it's hard to sustain it. Now, if you decide that's too hard and we don't want it, I don't live here, but what will happen is something will happen. The church will sell this building and it will be, who knows, it'll be a Witherspoons, or it will be housing or something. So that's your choice. Do you want it? And that's going to be hard. And as the community says, actually, we don't want it, then it will be something else. You'll lose it. So that's the reality. So I don't disagree with you, but it's a hard journey. But either that, or you just allow the private sector to take it over.
I'm a little bit perplexed here a little bit, and I'm not upset. The reason I'm upset is we have two councillors here tonight from South Ayrshire who represent our town. They should be fighting for us, not standing idly by and watching things come by. They have other priorities, I realise that. We've got the swimming pool coming up and everything like that. The only time that this church really comes together as a community is when it's a Remembrance Day. That is when we come together. We need to take action now. We want to secure this building. I fell in love with this building all those years ago when I came out of the forces. I was lucky enough to be christened here. There's a lot of history in this town, and there's a lot of people who are fighting that are going to lose this building because developers will come in and knock it down, and that's all our history gone away. Those people on that war memorial fought for our freedom. We need to fight for this building to honour them and the people that they're going to follow. We can't just push it aside and say, we've got roots here, we've got roots over there. We need to come together as a community, not be fragmented. We're a community, we stick together, we fight together. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is David Hara. I'll try and inject a little bit of positivity into the discussion tonight. One of the things that's occurred to me is, and I understand why you do this, is you're trying to cast the net far and wide for how this building will be used. as a means to try and attract as much funding and donations as possible. Might I suggest that maybe a more focused vision for the building might attract more donations? And it struck me the other day when I was visiting the Dick Institute in Kilmarnock what a wonderful facility that is for the town. And Troon ought to have something similar, and could have something similar, if 1,000 people gave £250 to repay a bank loan over 5 years. So, what I'm trying to say is, how would you harness that level of enthusiasm without having 2 pages of potential uses of the building? And we've all seen the state of the library. Might that not be a better tenant for this building? The Mar Resource Centre is stuck in a half-derelict building.
Yeah, no, but that's right. Yeah.
It seems to me if we had a little bit more of a vision that everyone can get behind, more people would probably donate. I think the fear is that people don't want to donate because they feel they're donating to a lost cause and we don't really know what we're going to do with it.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just see the gentleman here, but I was just going to answer that. I think that's all really good points, and I think in terms of funding, it's probably worth saying I certainly would not be averse to public funding. You know, we're just working with a group in the Highlands, just raised £300,000 in their local community. That's highly unusual, but that was just a few weeks ago. But you know, this is only going to work if we ever get some external funding from the UK government, Scottish government, those kind of structural funds, and it's all about outcomes. So it's about what difference does this make to the community. They're not really bothered about a church or whether it's concerts, but they want to know if people are over here with these kind of challenges, you know, then what are you going to do to make their lives better? So yeah, having a focus on outcomes really should make a difference. Sorry, yep.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Councillor Bob Pollock. I'm one of the 4 ward councillors, and I've got one of the other councillors here as well. If I could just address the last gentleman's points. We've got a state-of-the-art library that just opened a few months ago. It's not the derelict building, which is going to be redeveloped as an early years centre. The Mar Resource Centre shut down over a year ago because it fulfilled its need. It was set up as a IT training centre to begin with the advent of computers. That's now commonplace in the school. So it's helpful if we concentrate on ideas that are realistic rather than ones that aren't. I would also disagree. I know Andy's passionate about the building, and I appreciate that. But the town does come together, and I think the reason you get such a high response to your survey shows that. So we've got a number of events that does pull the town together. With entertainment recently, we've got the summer fair. There are a host of other events. So the town does come together rather than just for one particular event. I think raising the 200,000 by the end of the year is going to be unrealistic. You've highlighted the funding challenges yourself. As a council, we are finding exactly the same. What I can say is we are putting money into the town hall because we know that the demand that there is for it. So when you highlight the fact the groups that could be using here, there's probably 2 main hirers of community facilities in the town, one being the council, another being the Scout Hall, which is oversubscribed as well. So we know we're improving the town hall because of the demand. I suspect, and I've had the conversation with Maureen, I don't see the 2 premises for all next door to each other. I see them as being complementary rather than in being in competition. I think there's been a good point made about the coordination of running events so that we don't end up cutting each other's throats by running tribute bands on the same night. I think that should be a relatively simple thing to do. I think in terms of uses of community space, there will be a demand within it. One of the questions I was going to ask is, given that it's unrealistic that we're going to raise the 200,000, is there any opportunity of even leasing the building from the church on a trial basis, which would allow the business model to be tested? I mean, feeling that, I think the church is probably just going to lie empty anyway, and then you're going to have all the issues with it becoming more derelict if it's not been used, it's not been heated, etc. I think it would be a potential halfway house for both the church to keep some income coming in relation to the church, and it would give the trust the opportunity to test the business model. if you've got a successful business model that's demonstratively working and generating the income that you need to sustain the building long term, that's when you're likely to see investment coming in, particularly if you're applying for grants. Thanks.
Great. No, I had a wee bit of clarity about the funding, but I'm going to ask Maureen to just answer that just now, and then I'll give a wee bit of stuff about funding.
Yeah, it's just to address the gentleman, Mr. Hanna. Part of our plans that we were trying to incorporate in here is an education learning centre, you know, to sort of bring forward education it's not part of the curriculum. We have approached the Mar Trust because we think that we could incorporate the Mar Trust in here. Unfortunately, until we actually own it, Mar Trust can't make a decision because we can't promise them space until we actually own the place. But we have approached them because we would like to incorporate that, because that would be part of the heritage as well. CKMAR, what better way within here as part of our heritage centre as well. There was another thing I was going to say as well. The lease, yeah. We have asked about a lease and we've not been given a definitive answer. I am meeting with a few people next week to actually put a couple of options forward. One being a lease to try and help, you know, cover the costs of, you know, keeping this building open to allow the community to use it, because it is substantial costs on a monthly basis. We have managed to attract some new people in, but they're aware that we have only got exclusivity until the end of the month. We would ideally like to keep the place open and then actually push for new organisations, new activities to come in here to cover the costs until such times as we can get the money raised for the building. So it is in hand. We are working towards it, but it was good points raised.
What about borrowing the money?
Borrowing the money at this stage is a high risk, because for us to take a loan out just now, we need to make sure we're able to pay that loan back.
That's what I was saying. If we get 1,000 people to commit to paying it back.
Yeah.
It's not donations based on a might be, maybe, possibly. Yeah. It's donations on the fact that we'll definitely get it.
Yeah. And well, we have got the option of a pledge at the moment. I've not thought about asking folk to pay back loans, but we do have the option for people to pledge money, whereby they will formally pledge a sum of money for us to go forward with the purchase of it, but they don't hand the money over until we've got enough, you know, to actually put an offer in. Yeah, we are looking at the Architectural Heritage Fund can offer loans as well. We are looking into that. We are taking advice, but it's not something that we would want to take out unless we could guarantee that we're able to pay it back, obviously.
Yeah, you'd have to have a contract with 1,000 people who would fund it.
Mm-hmm.
I would.
Right.
If I knew that the building was secured. Throwing money just into the ether.
Yeah.
No one's going to do that.
The business plan that we have, and the plans for this has just came from public consultation. They can change. If people come forward and say, we would rather see this building being used as such and such, we are very flexible, as long as we know that whatever we use the building for is going to generate the income. Nothing is set in stone. That's why we don't want to come in here and start ripping things out and putting structures in for certain activities. We want it to be continually flexible, so that we can chop and change as what the community wants.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I mean, really interesting points. Sorry, can I just, is it okay if I just clarify, because I absolutely get you. But I just, people might not be aware of where funding normally comes for this. And we've been a bit of a victim of time. So the Scottish Land Fund exists, it's Scottish Government funding, and they fund exactly this. So they fund the communities to purchase assets. It's been there for a long, long time, over 10 years. But the issue at the moment is that the Land Fund is at the very end of a 4-year funding cycle, and that fund closed at the beginning of August. So we weren't able, well, even if we were able to go in August, because this is coming to the very, very end and the final, even if we'd able to apply, which we didn't really have time to do, but even if we'd thrown in a very quick application, the money had pretty much run out. So I'm in contact, as is Maureen, we're in regular contact with the Scottish Land Fund, and they know about this situation, and basically it's closed now. It's going to open again in the spring of next year, so next financial year. They're, depending on when they get their offer, their confirmation letter from government, and you know, our elected members here will understand the statutory funding pressures we have. They might have to pause until the elections in May because of Purdah and so on. So they might, but as soon as they have new money in spring, early summer of next year, they'll open up again, and they're expecting us to apply. So I've spoken to them, and that their maximum grant is $1 million. So suddenly 200,000 is a cheap application for them. This is a cheap application for them. But that's in the future. And then our issue is the Church of Scotland is very keen to sell. They're really, to be frank, interested in. Well, they need the money. They're a charity that is running out of money. So they need the cash injection into their charity. But we've got to ask ourselves the question, or they do, what can this building be sold for? You know, a beautiful little country church in a village is going to architects to renovate into a lovely house. You know, but this is tough. They'll never turn this into housing. You know, we've spoken to housing developers. This will never become housing. It's too expensive. You know, I don't know, an antiques dealer wants the big storage space. Who knows? You know, it's not impossible. But as Maureen was saying, if we can say to the church, look, we've got a pretty strong chance of getting £200,000 next spring. So give us a lease from now until then, and then we'll take all the burden off your hands. We'll cover all those costs over that period, knowing that we think we've got a good chance of generating that money at that point. And we may have a window of opportunity there. And I think the gentleman's quite correct. Actually, you know, potentially we can look at getting some funding through potentially a loan. I don't want to make this too complex for people, but there's a concept called community shares, which is really common now, and local communities can purchase shares in something like this. But we have to make sure that the business plan stacks up so that, you know, a funder would say, yeah, we can give you that so that the loan can get paid back. So that we do have options beyond just expecting the community to come up with 200 grand, which I agree is not feasible, but we do have some other options. So I just wanted to let people know about the Scottish Land Fund in case some of you hadn't come across that. So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. I'm O'Neill, I'm with Troon Menshed. Just to stay on the positive side of things, and with your previous experience with other towns, is there anything you can share about how they manage some of the bigger churches, for instance, with your help to make their project viable, and how did that go? How long did it take? Sitting here, it seems like a very, very difficult task for the trust here, but obviously, as you've said, it has happened. It can be done. Can you share any examples just from your own experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them comes to mind. It's actually in Shetland, but it's nearly as big as this. It's a big church because it attracted a lot of people from lots of village on the south of the island. It's not as big as this, but it's probably 3/4 of the size. And they've been trying to generate money to take on that building. And I think what made me think about it is there's a village hall. Literally, they share the car park. So the village hall is here and the church is here. So they have that issue of competition and displacement, and they haven't had any major capital grants in the last 3 years, but they've opened up the building and used it for flexible space. So they've created a charity shop in one corner. People travel from quite far to come to that. They have a pop-up cafe a few days a week. They have a girl's taken a big young woman's taken a fairly sizable part of the back, what would be the vestry, that's quite extensive. She's a music therapist for people with disabilities, so she gets people from all over Shetland, tens of thousands of population. There's a fairly sizable population, and they come to her music classes, and she pays quite a good rent for that. And then they have art classes, they have pop-up art exhibitions, and then if they do events like weddings, they'll have the wedding in the hall because they still have the pews in the church. So the wedding in the church, the conferences in the church, but they wander next door to the village hall, and that's who does the catering, that's where they do the meals, and they've got quite a good mix there. So there are a number of examples like that where churches have done that. And we're just working on one just now up in Fife, in Buckhaven, and the church is being developed into a theatre. So it's taken a couple of years to develop because these things take a bit of time, but that's Heritage Lottery funded, and they're trying to, because they're quite interested in areas that are not traditionally funded by heritage money, so that heritage money goes in to do some renovation of that, to turn that into a space for the community. There is a cafe there because there's no cafe within a walking distance, so they are having a commercial cafe there, plus theatre moving in. So they've got a community theatre, and they've got a theatre who's actually based in Bathgate, but who want to have a second theatre, and they're going to come out and share that theatre space. So 2 theatres will share that space. So there's a number of different examples on this. If people are interested, there's good track record, and Claire has been here, been involved. She used to work for us, she now works for DTAS, Development Trust Association, who have a church project funded by the Heritage Lottery. On their website, Development Trust Association Scotland, if you look on their website, you see lots of examples of churches that have been through this road and developed things.
Thank you.
Hi, Craig Mackay, local councillor. I think that we've heard some negative comments tonight, and I can understand, I can appreciate there's people who maybe don't quite see how the project's going to work, or maybe don't have an interest in using facilities here themselves, but I don't think that's a reason to denigrate those who have that positive vision for the building, and in particular the volunteers who put so much effort into getting it as far as they have done. I don't think the £200,000 mark is going to be reached by the end of December. That's just not going to happen. I know there was reference earlier to a separate valuation. I'm not sure is that consistent with the 200,000, but whatever the figure is, it has to be hit. I don't think even going beyond that is going to come from donations alone. And there has to be a bit more effort, in my view, into getting loans. I can see this sort of £250 thing that was suggested earlier. That's a very difficult one to do. But I'm thinking more in terms of big loans from either individuals or businesses who are able to make that contribution on the basis that somewhere down the line they're going to get that back. Clearly that has an impact on the business plan, because it's not going to stack up quite as easily if there's going to be outgoing payments coming from that. But the important thing is to get over that line. And if you don't get over the line, it's not going to happen. So that has to be really, I think it has to be a priority to get these pledges or loans in there. But I'm trying to appreciate a bit more on the sort of valuation and how that's going to stack up. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I think the independent value, for me, Maureen, correct me if I've got this wrong, I hope this is right, but I think the independent valuation that we commissioned was actually slightly more than the church's valuation, so we're quite happy to accept the church's valuation. But yeah, I think taking up all these things, Maureen and I will continue to work together. We're not going to disappear, although the business plan's largely there. I mean, we don't go away, so I'm very happy to continue to work, and we know the Architecture Heritage Fund really well. We work with them a lot. There's a fund called the Catalyst Fund, that's run by an organisation called Firstport, and it's kind of the kind of stuff you're talking about is equity funding. So how it works is, if they think this is financially viable, and that's the big thing, £200,000 for them is nothing, and they would give it to you as equity, and it's patient capital they call it. So they sit on it and they go, there's your 200,000 to buy the church because we believe in that, and we'll sit back for a few years to see how you get on, and when that money starts to generate, we'll take our money back. I got an email from them yesterday asking me for an example of a project that they could start to work on. Maybe this is it. Yeah, I think I said it that, and I know the lady here felt there was. I think I don't want to disagree with you. I think your comments are really well made. You know, if we're in some ways, I can be too positive, I can be a bit cup half full. But if we're too positive, we can't be realistic. So we know this is challenging. We know it's challenging, but it is challenging for lots of people, and it's probably worth saying that what we've got here, and again, Maureen will keep me right on this, what we've got here from the Church of Scotland is an exclusivity. So we're allowed exclusivity until the end of December, and then it's open for them to do what they want with it. They may extend that for us because we've got a business plan, we've got a good bunch of people coming, we've got potential load. They might extend that because they think that's a better option for them. But they don't have a buyer in the wings. You know, their only option is to stick this on the open market and hope for the best. So although the exclusivity finishes in December, there's nobody sitting in the 1st of January with £200,000 in their pocket. So there is a risk for us losing the building, but it's not that there's not a buyer sitting in the wings. They're then on the open market hoping for the best, and that still gives us time between, you know, into the spring and early next year to generate that money either from the land fund or other places. That's right. Aye.
Maureen was talking about pledges, which I think is a very good option, but I have never seen in print explained how you do a pledge. Who do you contact? How do you do the pledge? You know, the business that, who wants to lift money and then the sale doesn't go ahead, you have to reinvest the money. No, a pledge surely means you keep the money until it's going to go ahead, at which point you lift it, give it to you, and there you are. But I have never seen it explained in print how you do this, who you contact, what is done.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, because all these things are lovely an idea, but somebody's got to actually do it. So that's a really good question. There's a number of ways you can do it. There is an organisation that's quite new, actually, that we work with quite closely, called Democratic Finance. And that's their job to do this, to help communities to generate money from their local community. So that's the work that they do. So they would come and help us to set up the system. They would help us to develop something that's called a prospectus. So that's a document that largely comes out of our business plan, but it's a wee bit of a marketing document. So it summarises the project, summarises the finances, the target that we need, and they organise that marketing process. And then it goes out into the community, generally got a website or a web page that's there, which allows people to go on. And if we're looking for pledges, then people can do that. They can go on and say, yep, I'll pledge £100, £1,000, £50, and we've got them logged on the system with their contact details, and we can say, look, we're getting to 150,000, we think this is doable. That might allow us to then maybe get a £50,000 loan, and when everything's in place, that system's able to go back to those individuals and say, you know, thank you very much, you pledged £50,000, can you now pay it into this bank account? You know, it's still voluntary, and some of those projects, some of those don't convert. You know, some of the people that pledge £100 and then you never hear from them. So, you know, it's not perfect, but that's generally the system that they use. And as I say, Democratic Finance would help us to manage all of that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can I just ask this something? See, on the 250,000 that you're talking about, what does that actually secure? To pay to the Church of Scotland for this book. What does that secure? What happens then after that? What happens?
It's a wee bit like...
Have to have a couple of million to make the place right. I mean, what does the 250,000 secure?
If we buy this for, I think the valuation was around 200,000. So if we raise 200,000 and maybe an extra 50 for bits and pieces around the side, and we'll need legal fees and so on.
So that's actually going to buy the building, the 200,000?
That's a purchase of the building, that's it. That's the purchase price of the building, yep. That's it. So that then means...
It's in knowing that it's going to cost millions to make it right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the situation we're in. Yeah, no, you're totally right. And I think, as I say, I think your questions are really important. So people need to realise if we buy the building, you've got a building. And that's brilliant, but it's also a liability. So, you know, you need to be, I think the Trust is very aware of this, you have to go in with your eyes open as a community. So the 200,000 only gets you the building. It then gives you have to fix the roof, you have to pay insurance, you have to pay the electricity bill, and then you've got a period of fundraising to bring money in to maybe do up the hall, you know, take the pews out, don't take the pews out. So you're completely right. Just for clarity, that 200,000 is just to own the asset. Of course, you can sell it if it doesn't work out, so it's your asset. So it is an asset, potentially. So then the community has the ability to, if it doesn't work out, the community can sell that and realise that cash for the community rather than the private sector. That is a possibility.
Yeah, just to make it clear that we have had meetings regarding repairs, etc., with heritage funders such as the Architectural Heritage Fund, Historic Scotland, Environment Scotland, and they're very keen to help, but only after we own it. There is money there. For how long that money will be there, I don't know, because there's so many churches coming on board. But once we own the building, it opens up a wealth of funders that we can actually access, but they're not interested until we own it.
Maureen, can I ask a question? As I said before, you've got all this history in this church. What is actually going to happen to the plaques and all the colours and things like that you see around the church? Are they going to decay? We need to think of if the worst comes to the worst and we do lose it, what happens to these plaques? Are they going to be housed? Can we maybe think about getting a museum set up to house them? Because as I said, there's so much history in this town. And once we've lost it for good, and we don't want that. We've got a town that we want to celebrate. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I think the discussions we've had so far is that if we take over the remain, because they'll be part of our heritage tours or whatever it is we're going to do with the building, if we don't and the place closes, then they'll probably be removed to a safe place till a decision's made with what to do with it. Ideally, it would be within some sort of heritage centre within the town, if we ever get one. But again, it's ideal if we take it over because it remains as part of our heritage and as part of the heritage centre that we are hoping to get in here.
Yeah, just before the gentleman comes, just a tiny bit of clarity is that I think that is a problem. Sorry, I will come to you. Just answer that question. I think that is a worry. So just so people are aware, there is a national programme right now happening. I think it's St Andrews University that are running it. I think, and they're going around all of these churches. 500 or 600 churches in Scotland, and they're registered and creating a digital register of all those artefacts, the war memorials, the chancel, the communion table, all that stuff. They're registering all that, photographing it, so that in perpetuity there's a record of all that. Because I think the concern is if there was 1 or 2 churches going, and it's important, but Scotland doesn't need 500, 600, 700 communion tables. Common sense will tell you nobody's going to store 500 communion tables, so your communion table is at threat potentially. So that I think people are aware, which is why this project's digitising all of that.
My name's Mike McMillan. I am part of the board. One of the things we've done, and it kind of struck me, and the lady that spoke, I'm married to this woman, I think, because my wife has the same concerns and gives me the feedback that we heard tonight, and I think everybody in the room has thought that one way or the other. We've decided we don't talk about that anymore. It doesn't count with you and me, but I can't talk to my wife about that anymore. But that is an issue. One of the things we've done is we've visited West Kilbride, for example. They have a much smaller church, and they've turned that into the Baroni Center is fabulous. One of the other places that we've talked with is the old cinema in Prestwick, the Broadway, and they shared with us an enormous amount of information. One of the things that's parallel is they had that as an opportunity. It was privately owned, but they had that as an opportunity, and they needed £200,000 to get it. It took them 2 or 3 rounds and probably close to a year to be able to get the money to be able to buy it. What they found, and they told us, and we've kind of heard it, and Douglas has told us tonight, money is not as loose as it was even 18 months ago when the Broadway was looking for their investments. However, once they were able to get the funding, buy that property, own it, and it was multi-millions that they were able to get primarily from the architectural funds and such, but they had private people who wanted to come and be able to give something, and they weren't willing, either through a pledge or through the third party, they weren't willing to do that. But as soon as they had that piece of property, those people came to to help out. So there is no promise that that could happen for us the way it did for them. But if it happened half as well for us as it did for them, we would be able to fund the renovations and the insurance and the facility costs for some period of time. And it might be an hour, it might be a week, it might be a year, it might be more. We don't know. That's the piece that we have to, if we get this, we have somebody that comes to us with the money, we raise it. That before we say, right, we're going to sign on it, we need to understand that a little bit more. And if we have the rights and the ownership of this place, we then have the opportunity to go back to people with a different discussion. And I think that's sort of an interim step between where we are today and actually taking ownership.
It was just to ask, our local MPs and MSPs, have they been informed and have they been of any assistance to you at all? Thank you.
No more than very general support. I mean, I think certainly the MSP we spoke to briefly who would provide a level of support but didn't really want to get involved in the detail of this and felt it was a local issue. But yeah, generally supportive.
And the next thing is, as a former Church of Scotland member of the board, we used to have session meetings and we had board meetings. And I know there's probably a few ex-church elders in here. Maybe they could speak to the Church of Scotland at the General Assembly and bring it up there at conference. Because if a lot of churches are going like this, they're going to lose a lot of their flocks. We have one church that has been used to hold, like this year we had a Remembrance Day parade. Every year that I've been involved in the Remembrance Day for the last 30 years, the only church that we've been able to hold the actual service of remembrance, apart from down at the beach, is this church here. Because none of the other churches in the town have the facilities for the standard bearers to do the parade down the aisle, form up along the chancel here. It's going to be a shame to see it, but if we do get it, at least we'll be able to do something like that. As a former chairman of the RBS, there was only 1 year that we had to cancel it. And yes, we moved into the town hall, but that wasn't big enough. So really, we need to secure this building, not just for Remembrance Day, but also for the people of the town, because it will be an asset that will be used by a lot of people, and it will bring people together. I'm thinking of the young people as well, who are not a member of any youth organisation, who would ideally like somewhere that they could come to, like a drop-in cafe, where there's no alcohol or anything like that, and they could be a full-time youth worker, maybe employed at some stage. Those are my views. You might think they're a bit daft, but the youth would be encouraged, I think, would like to get involved in some form, shape or form. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Oh, there we go. Eddie.
Thank you. Just going back to your sustainability model that you had put together, and you said it was very tight. I just wondered what did that include in the way of, you know, we'd be paying rent if we were using a room or something, but what would that pay for? Is it just the heating and?
Yeah, I mean, the model's tight because the building's so big, and the building's so big because its issues are. I mean, the vast majority of problems with this building is the utility bill. So, you know, one of the things, for example, is we need to think through alternative uses of the building. So one of the funds in our funding strategy is a CARES fund, which is Scottish Government funding that allows us to tap into £80,000 to bring renewable energy into the building. Now this is a tricky building because it's historical. It'd be quite hard to put PV panels all along the roof, although they're softening on some of that. But potentially something like air source, ground source heat pumps that's going to potentially increase the efficiency in the building. But it is difficult. So that's really that's the biggest expense really, because staffing wise we've kept it relatively low. We have a full-time development officer looking after the building, developing projects. Not more than a facilities manager is applying for funding, doing that joint work with other places. The development manager, part-time sort of admin, finance, paying the bills, keeping things going, and a small level of cleaning and caretaking. Yeah. So we're trying to keep the staffing quite tight. Now imagine we'll have projects that will be grant funded, but that's our sort of core funding. And the income coming from so it's ticketed events, it's lets for building. Well, we know people are already paying that, so we know what kind of hourly rate would be there. We've got some permanent office space that people look likely might take, so that's really where it stacks up. In the first couple of years, though, people are aware when you start, like anybody starting a business, it doesn't stack up in year one. So we've tried to really think, open in day one, we won't be as busy as year 5. So there's a bit of grant funding in the first year, tapers down into the second year. So into the third and fourth year, it becomes a bit more positive, but it does take a little while to get to that break-even point. And so that's why I just wanted to be honest with people and saying we're not all going to become millionaires here. You're talking about making sure it stacks up. We'd have to look really carefully at the business plan to see whether we could sustain a loan, and what level of loan, at what percentage could we sustain. So it's doable, and I'm fairly clear that it is sustainable, but it is quite tight. We don't have a lot of fat around the edges.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just to ask if there was some staffing in it, but it appears you've factored that in. Thanks.
Any other final thoughts? Well, thank you very much, folks. Just if anybody looked at me on my phone, I wasn't checking my texts. I didn't bring my notebook with me, so I was making some notes as people were saying that. So I've got a few notes from tonight that will inform some of our connection going forward. So I'll continue to work with the Trust, and I think we'll look at, particularly over the next few months, as that crucial relationship with the Church of Scotland moves forward. And I'm quite easy to find. We work with an organisation called Community Enterprise. I'm Douglas. If you Google that, you'll find all my mobile number and my email address on the website. If you Google Community Enterprise, it will come up first. So if anybody's got comments and you want to feed that in directly to me, I'm very, very happy to hear anything. But thank you, guys.
Can I ask a final question?
Oh, yeah.
Is the closing time the end of December?
I think that's the exclusivity deal from the Church of Scotland saying we won't put it up for sale until the end of December. That's
after the end of December, it can go in the open market?
Potentially.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just like to say thank you, Douglas, for coming along tonight to talk about things and answer questions. I'm going to hand you over to Jackie, who's just going to just give a wee conclusion at the end, and then hopefully we'll still have a question and answer for people to come up and talk to us, not like face-to-face, one-to-one. So, but I'll let Jackie speak to you just now.
First of all, guys, thank you all for coming. As a board, we much appreciate it, and we much appreciate your opinions and your thoughts. We understand the emotion that there is in this building. I wasn't a member of Troon Old. I was a member of St Martin's. But I have had many of an event in Troon Old. We've all got memories of this place. I remember, to use the microphone. Can you all hear me? Do I need the microphone? Oh, you can't hear me, Kathy. Right, okay. I can remember being at school at Mark College and being in the junior girls choir and the senior choir and doing the carol concerts in here. I don't know if anybody ever came to them, but we all get ready in the halls. And our teachers, you wouldn't get away with it nowadays, but our teachers were so kind to us. There we were in our school blouses, and I see a smile. You were in the choir with me, weren't you? Girl in up the back that just asked the last question. Yeah, you were in the choir with me. We had to take off our blazers in December with school blouses and walk, not through here, no, we had to walk outside, didn't we, Alison? And walk along, and as we left the hall, Mrs. Penman and Miss Thompson, we had to start singing Once in Royal David City. So that when we walked down the aisle here, we were singing the same words as the folk that were here to watch the concert. Wouldn't get away with that these days, would we? We'd have to come in through the halls and not go outside. But it was lovely memories, and we've all got lovely memories. Mr. Girvin mentioned the Remembrance Parade, and he was absolutely right. At one time, this was the only church that could hold the whole parade. My son went to Boys Brigade here. He played in the pipe band here. We've all got memories of this grand old lady. But what can we do about her? We're only 8 board members that are trying to save this beautiful building and make it into a community asset for you guys. Not for us, for you guys, for your children, our grandchildren. Because we're not going to live forever, unfortunately. Although I've told my kids that I am, just to annoy them. So what do we do about it? Because we can't do it on our own. The money's one thing. And are we going to have 200,000 by the 31st of December? Well, Maureen's been playing the lottery faithfully twice a week for the past 6 months, and we've not got anywhere yet. So unless something like that happens, no, of course we're not going to have the money. But what if we did? What if we did have the money? What if we could say to the Church of Scotland in Edinburgh on the 1st of January, there's your £200,000. What then? We need you guys. We need you guys to help us. We need you guys to come to things that are going on in the halls and going on here. We need you guys to give us the backing. This is your place. This is your community hub. It's not ours. We're just trying to be the facilitators to get it for you. This is your community hub. This could be your community hub. The money is the first thing, but we're not looking for the money. We're not asking for money tonight. We wouldn't do that anyway. We're looking for help. We're looking for your ideas. We're looking for your thoughts. Now, Rachel said we're having issues with getting information out there about our events. The amount of times that we have come across people that have said, oh, we didn't know Come and Sing was on, or we didn't know your tribute night was on. We've stood in the street corners giving out leaflets. We've posted on Facebook, Instagram. We haven't done it on TikTok, but quite yet. What can we do? Hopefully in your post-it notes you've given us some ideas, because we're at a loss as to what to do. We get that people are concerned about giving money for what they think is a lost cause. I know people think that this is a pie in the sky idea that we've got. It's not. I promise you it's not. We can do this, but as a community we can do it, because we can't do it on our own. We've tried. We all have went home and we can't talk about it necessarily with our other halves, because they agree with Kathy and Mike's wife. You know, give it up, guys. It's, you know, you've done enough. We haven't done enough. We won't have done enough until the 31st of December at midnight, when we no longer have our exclusivity. What happens after that? Yeah, the decision does lie in Edinburgh. However, it lies with the community as well. What do you guys really want to see here? Do you want it into a Wetherspoons? Do you want it? Somebody told me they wanted it into a car park. Not quite sure how that would work, but they wanted it into a car park because the parking in Troon's awful. But this has got to be preserved. It's got to be preserved. It's got to be used and kept alive. Don't kill the building. Don't kill it and not support us. We were going to put up, and I take it, I'm assuming I'm not going to put it up because it's a bit too emotional. But we were going to put up a picture that we did as a post on Facebook a few months ago. And that post got more traction and more comments than anything else we had put up. Can any of you think what the post might have been? No? The Station Hotel tarpaulin. Do you all remember the Station Hotel? The eyesore at the top of Ayr. Do you remember what happened to the Station Hotel? It got covered in a tarpaulin. And us as council taxpayers paid a fortune to keep that as a tarpaulin. See, if this place get tarpaulined, it wouldn't be us that paid it. It wouldn't be for us. But what else could they do? Because they tarpaulined the Station Hotel to keep it safe, to keep the public safe from falling debris in a derelict building. Close the doors on here, kill this building, and it's going to get tarpaulined. It will have to, for your safety, for my safety, and anybody that happens to be walking past. The building's made of sandstone. It's going to deteriorate. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. We did have another post that we chose not to put up. And it was done with AI generating, obviously. And it was the building crumbling and it was a pile of bricks. As a board, we chose not to put that up. Because even as a board, we were quite upset about it. Because it looked awful. Do you want that to happen to here? Do you want that to happen to all your memories of here? Do you want that to happen to the war memorials here? Anything that, you know, we get the emotion, we've got the emotion, we've got the passion to drive this. We wouldn't have been doing it otherwise. But guys, we need your help. We can't do this alone. So what are our options? Dylan, can you put the slide up, please? I do have a slide. I'm not getting it. Get the slide in a minute. One of the options, obviously, is we do nothing. We don't do anything. We just let it, the doors close on the 1st of January, and we let it roll. It's the very last slide, Dylan. We close the doors on the 1st of January. Well, we don't. The church does. And we let it roll. And nobody gets access to it. Nobody gets access to the halls. Nobody gets access to this beautiful sanctuary. Which the acoustics, in realistic, guys, we've only got the microphone because we're going live stream. In here, you don't need microphones. The acoustics are top class. So yeah, we could do nothing. What else could we do? We could come together as a community and fight for this. We've been fighting for months, in the case of Maureen, years. In case of Fiona, Mike, years. We can come together as a community and fight to keep this open. To keep this for our future generations. Not have it as a car park and have your grandkids saying to you, what was in there, Gran? Not have it as a Wetherspoons. Well, maybe some people do want it as a Wetherspoons. But I get that we could be more focused in what we want to do, but we're taking a really broad brush approach about how we can use this building and these halls. But we need help. We can't do it ourselves. I'm not getting my slide, am I? Dave.
I think one of the issues is the fact that the people that are here tonight are obviously very interested.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
But for the size of the population of Troon, this is a disgrace for a public meeting.
Yep.
An absolute disgrace.
I don't know. Dylan, can you tell me how many's on live stream?
At the minute, 13.
13 in live stream. You're absolutely correct. Because...
The population, all these new houses got.
Yep.
These are the people who should be here tonight.
Yes. Yep, you're absolutely correct. Yep, I couldn't agree more. Yep. Yep, I quite agree. I absolutely 100% agree. Yeah, unfortunately, when we arranged the public meeting, we forgot. It's our bad that Mar Capella is doing one of their concerts tonight. So we're competing with Mar Capella tonight. And we know that they fill, I think they're in St Medans, we know that they fill it. So, Dylan, can we get a microphone? I can't, sorry my dear, I can't hear. The acoustics are good, but only if I'm projecting this. There's Dylan, get a wee microphone for you. Hi.
It's really just, I'm just reiterating what you were saying, that there will be a lot of people in St Medans Church who would have been here. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely is.
That you're speaking to maybe 25 people here, and as you say, this presumably are interested in some way or another about what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely correct. It is, it's unfortunate.
And the other thing about the new houses, these are all young people.
Yep.
And I think that if they could be targeted somehow and persuaded to think about it, I don't know how you go about that, but a lot of people are not aware of it.
Yeah,
I think it's
100%.
young people.
100%
I think
agree.
it's mainly, I mean, the people in St Medans will be the older generation who would have been here, but really it's the younger. I'm here thinking about my grandchildren's future, but you need to target the parents, really.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. Regarding the new estate, I know that Maureen, I think it was yourself that joined, there's different Facebook groups, you know about the Troon ones. Well, there's one specifically for the new estate, and we joined that. What issue is, I think, having spoke to some young people, and I'm sorry, I still class myself as a young person, but that's beside the point. Having spoke to some young people, Facebook's not what they're on, it's Instagram. So, yeah, and I totally get trying to reach the young people. We're not going to do that through Facebook or Facebook groups. It's got to be something to do with Instagram. Falling short, and we may have to do it, and I mean, I'm up for it, I need the work out, is to basically get around leaflets in the new estate and put them through doors. I mean, that might be what it comes to, is to do something like that, because the new estate, there's lots of houses. Douglas's feasibility study, I couldn't have told you how many residents there were in Troon until I read the feasibility study. And there's over 15,000 people in Troon. Yeah, so it's a bit of, you're right, Dave, it's a bit of a poor show, particularly with the live stream too. Maureen.
Just to let you know as well that we have actually been out and visited Mar College. So we have spoken to some of the young ones and they've come up with some really great ideas and they're really keen to get involved. They're not here tonight, unfortunately, but maybe their parents are away to the Mar Capella or something else, they've got other things on, but we are reaching out to the young folk. They are engaging with us. In fact, we're actually going to be having a joint pop-up cinema at Mar College on the 18th of December. So we're doing a joint event. So we are reaching the young folk. They're maybe just not, it's maybe not cool enough to come along to a public meeting, but we are actively reaching out to the young folk, and we have taken their views into consideration. But I totally get where you're coming from about the new estates. I don't know, how do we get out there unless we put leaflets through the door? And that's not always ideal either, because they just get in through the letterbox and into a bin. So I don't know whether we can. The problem is there's no venues in these new housing estates, like community centres or anything, that we could go and hold an event in. It's just houses. There is nothing, not even shops that we could put posters up. So how we reach them, I don't know. Maybe a big loudspeaker and a wee toot van or something. I don't know.
I'm happy to drive if you want the loudspeaker. So there's our options. First one I've already said, we do nothing. And it goes to whatever. Second one is we take ownership and we get the 200,000 and we pay it or we lease it, whatever, and we don't get the support and it fails. And then either if we've taken ownership, have to sell it, or other alternatives just isn't really an option. But how about we take ownership and it succeeds? And in decades, in many decades to come, this is still a community asset. It is still a place where people can come and enjoy the facilities of it, enjoy events in it, and it's vibrant and it's alive. There's our choices, guys. Keep the building alive by helping us and supporting us and, giving us ideas and securing this with us, or letting the building get killed. And then we've got another station hotel in our hands. It's up to you guys. And I get there's only, I think he said about 25 people here. Absolutely. I'm probably preaching to the converted because you've taken the time to come, so obviously you've got thoughts in the matter. Let's give us ideas how we get to the wider community. We need to do that. I'm happy to dress up and stand at a street corner with a megaphone, but I think I would probably get moved on, wouldn't I, Mr. Pollock? You're not saying a word. Okay, I accept that. Choice is yours, guys. The future of here is in your hands. Maureen?
So that probably comes to the end of our actual presentations and talks at you. And I'd just like to thank every one of you for coming along, and also for the people that have actually logged on remotely. Thanks very much for your support, and hopefully we'll continue to get it. We're going to be hanging about for a wee while, so feel free to come up and have a one-to-one chat with us at the end, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions that's not already been answered. But please, if you go away home tonight and something else comes into your mind, drop us an email. Our email addresses are on the website, or else you can contact us via social media, messenger or whatever. But don't sit with questions unanswered. That's what we're here for, to answer as many as we can. And again, I'm going to say thanks very much. It is really appreciated that you have taken the time tonight to come out. So thank you. Folks, we're having a wee event on the 12th of December up at the Anchorage Hotel at 6:30. Santa will be there. There'll be a wee bit of Christmas cheer, a wee bit of music, Christmas music, so you can come along and have a bit of fun. Okay, thanks.
So